Welcome back to Home Sweet Loan, another episode. We are here with Monica Santiago with Assured Partners, and we are so excited to have you here, Monica. We're going to talk all things insurance. Huge topic going on right now, and has been for a little while. So I thought it would be great for you to come on and share a little bit about what's going on in the insurance world and things that buyers and sellers and agents should be looking out for. But first, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us how long you've been in the industry, all that good stuff.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. Sadly, I'm going to age myself here just a bit, but I've been in the insurance industry for 10 years now, which I am very proud, absolutely love what I do. I did start as an insurance agent, so I'm a licensed insurance agent, and now I go out and I build my network within my partnerships and try to showcase just what I know about insurance to help you guys get to the closing table.
Yes, and you do a fantastic job of it. So I know we partner a lot with you and your team, and you're always a wealth of knowledge and going out and doing events with agents and getting to share. I mean, everything, like in our world, everything changes, it seems like, by the minute, right? And so what used to be may not be. And so if you haven't looked into insurance, or if you own a home and you've just kind of let your insurance roll over, so much has changed. So if you're shopping for insurance, it's good to know the new and greatest and latest. So we're going to dive right in. So obviously in Florida, we are having an insurance crisis, I guess, if you want to call it. Rising rates, dropped policies, carriers pulling out of the state. And so it's important that we cover this not only for buyers, but for sellers. And like I said, for agents who are getting ready to take on listings. And so we're going to talk about buyers first. So if I am a new home buyer, well, first, actually, before we go to that, tell me what your take is on what's going on in in our world in Florida with insurance. What do you think is, yeah.
Well, you're speaking my language here, but I have some great news. So what was the higher insurance rates, carriers dropping, all of that chaos is actually coming a little to a halt this year. So exciting news for 2025. We are seeing that insurance companies for home insurance are opening up capacity. So we lost 7 insurance companies back in 2022, which led to the crisis. That all started back when the roofing industry hit here in Florida, and everyone was getting a free roof and filing insurance claims. So that really impacted insurance companies detrimentally. So many of them pulled out of Florida. So we lost 7. We now gained 8 more companies back within the last, I would say, 6 to 12 months. So we're seeing that rates are leveling out. If not, they're actually lowering just a bit. And we are also seeing more availability. So companies are willing to take on a little bit more risk, whereas before they weren't, based on maybe roof age or plumbing, all the things in the 4-point inspection that I know we'll probably talk about.
Wow. Well, I feel like we should stop the podcast right now. That is fantastic. No, I'm just kidding. Fantastic news, though. Yeah. And so as you know, part of our process, in the home buying process with buyers is to help them get quotes for insurance. And you guys do a great job of providing those quotes. And we have seen some more options. So that I guess goes along with what you're talking about. And not as, depending on the area, of course, not as crazy pricing. So that's actually really, really positive news. Very exciting. So with that said, let's go into the buy side. So I'm a new buyer. I'm coming into the market. What are some of the important things that I want to be looking at that are important for a home?
Okay, so I have been preaching this for the last year, and I have seen more and more buyers become insurance smart, more now than ever. So my biggest advice or piece of advice is going to be all the things on a 4-point inspection. So your roof, your plumbing, your AC, water heater, roof, plumbing, AC, water heater. What am I missing? Electrical.
Yep.
I know this in my sleep. Electrical. So for me, if you're a buyer and you're deciding whether, maybe you need to get sod, or you need to get a new electrical panel, or you need to get, new tiles or anything aesthetic, those are things that you can do after you close. The real issue is getting insurance. If you are financing the home, you need to get insurance, right? So we're looking at the 4 points of a home. Now, let me just say, on a house that's over 20 years old. Now, your newer construction homes are pretty easy peasy. Insurance isn't a big deal. But anything that's over 20 years old is definitely going to be looked at with a microscope when it comes to all the things within the 4-point inspection. So I would highly recommend that if you are buying a house, just make sure that you look at those 4 points. And right now, your real estate agent should be able to guide you through that. So.
Okay. And so, age on roof, age on water heater, anything major like that, you'd say anything past this date's going to be an issue, or is that you kind of don't want to incriminate yourself there?
Yeah. So water heaters are a big deal right now, and they weren't a thing many years ago, but now it's a huge deal for insurance companies. So they're looking at a 15 to 20-year window on water heaters, just depending on the
Okay.
location. Roofs, I would say 15 years is where it starts to get a little tricky. It's not that we can't insure a house with a 20-year-old roof, but if you're a buyer purchasing a house, just know that at that 15-year mark or older, you may have to get it, replaced. Not immediately, but eventually you will. So
But
that's something you
sometime
have to
soon.
keep in your budget. Yes. Um,
Okay,
those
awesome.
are the two major ones.
That covers, yeah. So that covers our 4 point. Big thing. I most often always have to have that 4 point. What about flood insurance? What changes or updates are you seeing with flood insurance?
Yes. So, okay, we said good news on the insurance side. Well, I was just speaking about homeowners and auto insurance. Flood insurance is still in its own category. So, very important when it comes to flood insurance. First off, FEMA is remapping as we speak every day. So, flood zones are changing constantly. My biggest tip of advice is to purchase a flood policy regardless, or at least get a quote and inquire about it, regardless if you're in a flood zone or not. So, because maps are changing and rates are increasing with flood, I think that if you purchase a flood policy now while you're not in a flood zone, you may pay $400 or $500, and you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your home, your assets, right? If you are deemed to in a flood zone later on in the years to come, if you have already a flood policy in place, then you're
Your
grandfathered in.
grandfather.
Lower
Yeah,
price, and then it slowly will rise through the years, but you're not having to pay $2,000, $3,000, or whatever the quote may be. To me, I think flood is a huge topic, and we're trying to focus on quoting them with as many properties as possible. So yeah, very, very
yeah.
important.
Well, and yeah, think of all the people over the last 12 to 24 months that weren't in a flood zone that a natural disaster or storm has come through and flooded really bad, and of course left them without that
Yeah.
protection. So it's definitely great advice, and it is fairly cheap if you're not in a flood zone, really.
I do have to give you one nugget here. So if anyone was here or knows about Hurricane Ian, I know there's like a long laundry list of hurricanes here in Florida, but Hurricane Ian happened about 2.5 years ago. It had the biggest impact here in Florida when it comes to flooding. It was pretty much what tipped us over. The majority of flooding that happened from that hurricane was in flood zone X, which is the lowest risk flood zone. And so a majority of the flooding happened in the lowest risk, right? So a majority of the people that were impacted by the floods didn't have
Didn't
flood
have flood.
insurance. So what
Yeah.
happened then? They had a FEMA loan that they're now paying to get their house back into a livable state. So I
Yeah.
I feel it's very close to home. I had friends and family impacted by that hurricane. So I tell all my friends and family, just get flood insurance now, because you may not think you're in a flood zone, and then a hurricane hits or a bad storm, and you don't know how it's going to impact your property at that time. So very important.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Okay. And so with what about wind mitigation? We talked about inspections. Just real quick, hit on wind mitigations and when it's needed and why you get it.
Yep. Wind mitigation inspections are good on houses that are built prior to 2002. So code change in 2002. So everything that was built after 2002 already has the wind mitigation credits in place. They're for discount purposes only. So you have two inspections when it comes to insurance. 4-point, wind mit. 4-point is eligibility purposes to obtain insurance. Wind mitigation is to help lower your price. So that's probably the easiest way I can explain it. But if you work with a good insurance advisor or a good lender like yourself, usually you guide them and say, hey, get one or the other, or just get them both. But
Yeah.
that's kind of the discount
When and why.
Yes.
And since you're speaking of that, why is it important to be connected with a good insurance agent company like yourself? Why is it really important?
It's important on all different aspects. So as a partner in real estate or in lending, it's very important that your insurance partner knows what they're talking about, has availability to access a majority of the market. So that way your client is not calling around and spending too much time. They're buying a house is one of the biggest purchases of one's life, right? And insurance is a piece of that whole transaction. And it's important to have a
Can break
partner
it,
that can
make it or break it, really.
it
Yeah.
really, and so we want to make it seamless for your buyers, right? And keep in mind too that we could also break a deal if we're overexcited about a house and maybe the roof has little bumps and bruises, and we could really scare a buyer away based on what
Yeah.
we discussed. So it's good to have a partner that understands the market, so that way we're in sync and we know how to get you to the closing table smoothly.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, obviously, we work with a lot of different insurance companies, and it is super important to make sure you have that partnership and make sure. I mean, there's a lot of times that we're looking at how insurance impacts the payment, how insurance impacts the debt ratios. And so having that open conversation, but also being able to differentiate and explain to the client the different coverages and why they have it and all those things is very important.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. So I am a seller and or listing agent, and I'm getting ready to sell my home or list a home. Tell me, what are the big things that I should be focusing on when I'm getting it insurance ready for the new buyer?
4 point, 4 point, and the 4 points.
Back to the 4 point.
I'm going to say that probably multiple times today, but 4 points. So I have been educating on the listing side that before you list a house, as a real estate agent, as the listing agent, walk through the 4 points of the home. Okay, I have actually a checklist that I'll be happy to share at any
Ooh,
moment. I created a pre-inspection insurance checklist, and it
I
tells
love that.
you what we're looking at, right? So not everyone knows specifically what insurance is looking at. You may not know water heaters 15 to 20 years, right? So this checklist will help walk you through that. But it's very important if you're listing a house, look at the 4 points. If you're pulling open, underneath the sink to look at the plumbing, are you seeing rust and corrosion? Does it look like if photos were taken, you'd probably cringe a little bit, like, ooh, that doesn't look too well, right? If you go to the water
Right.
heater and it's rusty, or maybe you saw granular loss when you were walking through the house the first time, those are things that should red flag you and not be pushed to the back burner, but you want to make sure you prepare the house ahead of time. Because I promise you, if you list that house and there's a buyer that's financing, you're going to have bumps and bruises. It's going to delay your closing. Now, cash buyers are a whole different story, but speaking of just in the lending side, we want to make sure that you look at the 4 points. That's my biggest.
Well, and if you're not addressing the things in the 4 point and those things come up, it like you said, it's a big transaction. It's a big thing for a buyer. So now they've got hesitation. Now you've got negotiations that could be heavy. You've got things that could really kill the deal. So definitely, I love that well, I love checklists in general, but I love that checklist. So I'm sure we'll have some people asking for that. It's really just important to do as you're doing your getting list ready. And same thing as doing photos, right? And how you're going to market the property. How is insurance going to impact the property? So really important. I like that.
Yes.
Roofs. What talk about roofs real quick. I know that's always a big question that people have.
Yeah. So roofs, we look at the 4 different roofing materials. So I said earlier about 15 years is when we start kind of looking at it a little differently. But I failed to tell you that's typically on a architectural shingle roof. Now you have tile roofs that, again, they are in that 15-20 year range. Metal roofs,
Wait, hold on. Everybody thinks the tile roof's like 40 years. Why? Okay, what's the disconnect?
Oh, I know. I'm going to get some heat on this one. Tile roofs. I am not saying that the tile roof on that house is going to start falling apart at 15 years. What I'm saying is that based on the insurance claims and the data we've collected on the insurance side over the last years, They have come to find out that tile roofs are way more expensive to replace. And with the tiles, they break, they crack. The underlayment, we're not able to see if there's one layer, two layers. So all these things impact whether you're going to have a leak in your roof or not, or you're going to have damage. So we've
Makes
looked at a 15 to
complete
20
sense.
year window.
Yeah, makes complete sense. But you do hear, I'm sure, just as I hear, it's got a tile roof. They're good for 40 years, 30 or 40 years, you know?
I know. During that roofing crisis, we replaced a lot of tile roofs. And let's just say if you had to price out an architectural shingle roof and a tile roof, I can almost tell you we're paying almost double for
Same
that
here.
tile
Yeah.
roof. So, for that's what we've come up with. But don't shoot the messenger. I'm just relaying the message. But metal roofs,
It's
I
good
know
to know.
yeah, metal
Yeah,
roofs are more favorable though, so we do give about 25 years on metal roofs and lots of wiggle room there. And
that's
then the
awesome.
last one's a three tab. I just have to cover all my bases. So in my mind, so three tab, 10 years, which it doesn't have as long as a shelf life anyways. But yes, so there we go. The four different roof materials that we are predominantly looking at and their ages.
Okay, awesome. Pipes that could kill a deal. Definitely important to cover it. It happens all the time around here with the age of homes.
Yes. So plumbing, again, on the 4 point, a huge deal. What we are looking at, what we're hoping we're not seeing on a 4 point inspection is polybutylene plumbing, which is a grayish plumbing. It sticks out like a sore thumb. But that is typically what we're looking at. PEX is, without getting too in the nitty gritty, we also are looking at PEX that was installed prior to 2010. We consider it almost similar to polybutylene plumbing, but yes, they have high risk for water damage. So the fittings pretty much can't resist or can't withstand our water and the chemicals in our water. So it just is a high risk for a pipe to burst. So
Do
big
you
deal,
have
even on
policies that will accept poly? Just insurance companies that will accept poly?
there's almost not, I think maybe one, but a majority of them that will accept it will absolutely exclude water damage coverage. So if you're a buyer and you're closing on that home and there's a pipe that bursts within the next week or months, it's
Yeah.
on your own. You pay out of
Yeah.
your own pocket for it. So
Big
very
risk.
important.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about claims because, we see those pop up and who does the claim follow? Let's cover that first.
Well, it's easy. It follows everyone and everything. So let me just narrow it down for you. It follows the buyer, it follows the property. Okay, so I always give this quick example. If you are moving from Texas to Florida, and in Texas you had 5 claims, and then you come now to Florida and you're buying this beautiful home with Kristen, of course, and
That's
and that house has two claims. You have a total of 7 claims now on your history within the last 5 years. That could absolutely impact your eligibility for insurance. So it's a 5 year window.
eligibility or cost. Could they get insurance or is it also is they could get it, but it's gonna be like insane?
It is all depending on what the claims were.
Okay.
And pretty much it's we're looking at who is the risk. Is the house the risk? Is the owner the risk? Are they filing frivolous claims? Are they, is it
Right.
fraud? Like what are we looking at here? So it would have to be narrowed down to the exacts of that particular scenario.
Okay. Yep. And let's see. What is your take on a seller offering credits or repairs before the home hits the market?
We don't care about any of that. We look at what we're insuring at the day of closing. So if there
Okay.
are repairs done prior to closing, we absolutely love that because we want a clean 4 point inspection. So that's great. Now we are seeing a lot of hiccups and bumps and bruises when we're getting, the credits to be repaired after closing. So if there's
That's it used to be a thing. Used to be allowed.
used to. Yes.
Okay.
And it's not to say that there is not an option because we're seeing again, insurance companies are opening up more and more. So currently in this moment in time, we have a few companies that will look at repairs after closing and they will give you a 30-day window on roofs. But I could say maybe in 6 months from now that they're willing to open that up a little bit more. So we are seeing a little bit of a change in that for the better. But right now,
Yeah,
we
that's
just
awesome.
encourage to do it before closing. It just makes life so much easier. And price wise, your buyer gets the best quote up front versus having to
Yeah.
swap it out later. Yeah.
Yeah, because remember, if we're doing the work after closing, insurance has to happen at closing. And so whatever policy we can get is what we're going to take. And it's not, like you said, not to say you can't change to get that
Mhm.
other policy once it's done and they've got a new roof on, for example.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a little bit of a hassle and pain.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. All right. So realtors. So we've talked about obviously listing agents. Let's talk about just realtors in general on the buy side or sell side.
Mhm.
What could they be doing differently to make this process smoother for their buyers?
So buyers are more insurance savvy now, like I mentioned earlier, especially if they're moving from out of state, because a lot of the other states are laughing at us here in Florida. They're like, "Ha, you guys have terrible rates. You can't get your insurance under control." So we're gonna laugh back at them now that it's getting better. But I would say on the real estate side, help educate and help guide your buyers or your clients with the insurance. Many years ago, it was sort of like, all right, you have to go get your insurance. You send them off on their way, maybe suggest, a partner or two that you work with, and then they had to figure it out. I'm seeing now that some of the solid real estate agents that are successful are helping to guide their clients, whether buying or listing, they're helping guide them with the insurance. So if it's the pre-listing, inspection they're doing and checking the 4 points before they list the house, or if it's, hey, we're about to sign on this contract. I noticed that the water heater and the roof might be a little out of insurance eligibility. So let's shop insurance now instead of
Yep.
waiting for the lender to help take care of it. So I've seen a lot more of that, and I say keep doing.
Yeah. So to add on to that, I love the agents that will reach out and say, "Hey, there is X, Y, and Z going on with this property.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can we get some quotes and run the numbers?" Because sometimes the client qualifies, but they don't want to pay what a $4,000 policy looks like, right? And again, I
Exactly.
don't see a ton of $4,000 policies, but I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying if there are some major things going on, doing that due diligence versus getting under contract, having
Mm-hmm.
them pay for an inspection, and then coming to find out that we've got an issue with insurance is absolutely advisable. And I see that on my side, of course. So I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how about setting expectations around escrow and how that impacts payment and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I will tell you this. I bought my house in 2020 and I did not sign anything until I knew what my taxes roughly were and what my insurance was, because that is a huge part of your monthly payment, right? Most people go through escrow. If not, if you pay in full, great, but escrow is a huge thing. I will say one important factor to know is that flood insurance is not escrowed into your monthly payment unless you are in a
It's
mandated flood
required.
zone and you have a government backed loan. So your
Yeah.
lender has to request it. So that's one thing that's huge that many people don't realize you have to pay that out of pocket. But as far as escrow goes, I mean, insurance works hand in hand with that. So we really have to help.
Hey, the other thing I've heard you say recently too that I absolutely we have one we're doing it right now on is flood transferring a flood policy. When is that possible from a seller if they're in a flood zone and they've got flood? When is that possible?
Yes, so that is possible. If you have a FEMA flood policy, it's NFIP flood, then it's transferable. So that is also a big reason why we are selling flood insurance now, even if you're not in a flood zone, because if you decide to sell your house and you have a flood policy, it's almost like a golden gem, right? You can transfer it to the seller. So it becomes almost a talking point in an advantage when you're selling your house. But yes, it is transferable. And we have seen that when you go to get a quote for flood insurance on a house that you're buying, you may get a quote for $2,500. But if the sellers have flood in place and their policy is only $500 or $600, that can
Huge.
transfer over and help you with your debt to income ratio. So you're paying the lesser of the two prices. So
With the same coverage, which is
same coverage.
fantastic. We have a buyer right now that is transferring a flood policy that's $800, and I'm positive if we were to shop it, it would be
Oh,
well
yeah.
into the three.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because rates are going up.
So
So.
Just that, I want to make sure I mention that because a lot of people don't know that,
Oh
and
yeah.
a lot of just a lot in general don't know that, so they don't know to even ask. Right? It's the first
It's
thing I ask when I
typically a
hear
mic
it's in a
drop every time
yeah.
they say
If
it.
I hear we're in a flood zone, my first question is, and I'm the lender, who am I, right? Who do they have a flood policy that we can look at transferring? So,
Yes.
huge nugget there. Why is the cheapest not always the best? I mean, I listen, I'm not always the cheapest, but our service is great, so I stand by what we do. But in insurance, speak to that a little bit.
Oh goodness. Okay. So cheapest is not the best in insurance. If you have anything valuable within your home, if you care about your home, it is important that you look at your options and you have an agent that can go over the coverages. So Citizens, I know we haven't really opened that door, but Citizens is the state-run insurance company, and many homeowners here in Florida are insured through Citizens. They offer very basic coverage. Okay, so we're straying away from offering those type of policies, even if it's $100 or $200 cheaper. You're going to get cheaper, meaning you're in a pool of thousands and millions of other people, and if a hurricane comes and you have the cheaper policy, well, guess what? You are also going to wait just as long, if it's 6 months to a year, to get your roof replaced, because you're all in the same risk together. So we're trying to offer, even if it's a couple $100 more, but you're getting a better quality policy with a private market insurance company that is willing to handle your claims in a different process than maybe a state run company. So I
Yep.
hope that
Yep.
answered that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, again, cheaper is not always better. I know sometimes when people are buying a home, the bottom line, like the bottom line, and the payment, and all of the rate I quote, the insurance you quote, all of that impacts it. And
Yes.
so sometimes people, but also it's just about education. So I mean, we've talked a lot about working with the right partner, working with the right companies. So I think that the education around why you want this policy over this policy is super important. And I
Yes.
just think that sometimes clients don't get that. So final takeaways. So we've talked about buyers and what they should be looking for. So we're looking at the 4 point. I think it all go in both buyers and sellers. We're going back to the 4 point, right? So we want to look
Yes.
at the roof, those 4 points, which are the roof, the AC, the water heater, and the electric.
Mm-hmm.
And so making sure that we're looking at the ages, possibly getting insurance quotes ahead of time. Like I said, when we do our process, we shop three different companies and help the client look at three different options.
Yes.
And so they're a part of it. We're not picking it for them, but they get the option to see what's out there. And so making sure you're helping with that. For sellers, I love your checklist. So if you want a copy of that, anybody, please let us know. We would definitely connect you with Monica and get you that. I think that if we do a lot of that due diligence at that time,
Mm-hmm.
we don't run into a lot of the issues going forward after that part. And so when you don't do that, I think you end up with all those really big negotiations, and then you've got buyers that may just walk away, and so
Yeah.
obviously that's an impact to the entire transaction. And then agents, obviously working with a fantastic partner like yourself, Monica, and having that go-to that they can call and say, all right, we've got this, and this. What are we looking at? So we can definitely set everything up for good, smooth process. Anything else you want to add? I feel like I summarized it very well for us.
Oh, you did such a great job. I was like, wow, you are paying attention in class, which is
That's
perfect.
right. I always did.
You have had the pleasure of joining one of my CE
I
classes, so
Yes,
I feel like you are also recapping quite a bit that you've learned from a few of the
yeah.
classes we've been together. But no, you nailed it on the head. I think education is key, shopping ahead of time, and listing agents. You can negotiate things so much better if if you know those 4 points of the house. But definitely, and also I want to leave you guys with one nugget because we only talked about homeowners insurance, but I just have to say, because each of you, if you're a real estate agent, you're driving and you're using your car, auto insurance rates are going down
Ah.
this year. Huge, huge, huge announcement that was made.
Man, we
Please
should
shop
have added
your
that to
auto
the front
insurance.
end.
Yes, please shop your auto. I just saved a real estate agent yesterday. It was $50 a month on her auto insurance. Okay,
That's
so rates are dropping. Anyone that is driving, please, you can call me, call your whoever it is, but I just want you to save money, and it's on the table this time. It's on the
Yeah,
table.
that's awesome. So we've got some positive things out of this conversation. We've
Yes.
got improvement in homeowners insurance,
Mhm.
improvement in auto insurance. Florida's
Yes.
not looking so bad.
It's
No,
not.
I'm
We
just
can laugh
kidding.
back at the other states now that are laughing
That's right.
at us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so Monica, we're going to put your information at the end here, and I'm sure
Perfect.
we'll have some people that want to reach out and get your checklist. I really appreciate you joining us. This is such an important part of what we do every day, what our
Yeah.
agents do on a daily basis. So I thought it would be very helpful to share some of the things I've heard in your classes, and you do a fantastic job there too. So
Good.
thank you so much for taking some
Thank
time.
you. And you're an
Yes.
amazing partner. So I have to say,
Mhm.
if you're not working with Kristen, you are doing a disservice to yourself because she's a rock star. And it's been more than a pleasure working with you all of these years. And I look forward to continue to work with you because you
I
are
love
amazing.
it.
So thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you. Have a good day.